This is Fast Facts History, today with a different video. Moving aside from American history, we move to Indian history and something a bit more modern with the emergency and the upheaval of Indian politics. Once again, a quick summary. The emergency was a 2-year-long state of emergency in India from 1975 to 1977. It's considered one of the most controversial actions in Indian history. Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister at the time, declared a state of emergency with the excuse of external and internal imminent threats to the government, even though it was an attempt to retain power. The emergency allowed Gandhi to do whatever she wanted, so she arrested political opponents, suspended elections, curbed civil rights, limited the freedom of the press, and enforced sterilization, which is also led by Sanjay Gandhi, her son. A little about Indira Gandhi prior to the emergency. She became the Prime Minister of India in 1971 when the INC, or Indian National Congress Party, won more seats in the Janata Party and defeated Raj Narain. Following her rise to power, many students in Bihar in 1974 began a riot and political unrest arose. It seemed that Gandhi would be unseated in the upcoming election, which she couldn't handle. In 1975, Gandhi had President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed issue the proclamation of a state of emergency to the public with the reasoning of terrorism and internal threats to the government. The reasoning made sense to some, as the country had recently ended a war with Pakistan, and the 1973 Arab oil embargo affected the economy of many countries including India. As the constitution required, Gandhi and Ahmed continued to prolong the emergency every 6 months until 1977, when Gandhi decided to hold elections. There were many issues and despotic events during the emergency. Many political opponents and dissenters were arrested. P. Rajan was a student in Kerala who dissented against the government. Following his dissent, authorities arrested, tortured, and killed him during the Naxal movement in Kerala, and his remains are yet to be recovered. He is pictured on the left. The Baroda dynamite case was another proxy event in the emergency. Gandhi framed socialist opposition leader George Fernandez with attempting to smuggle dynamite in key governmental areas in order to arrest him and 24 other so-called conspirators who were rather enemies of Gandhi. He is pictured in the middle. Gandhi also arrested the Princess of Jaipur and the Rajputs Gayatri Devi, who wrote a famous book about her experiences called A Princess Remembers. She is pictured on the right. Indira Gandhi revoked the right to habeas corpus, which protects citizens from the right to be arrested without just cause, which allowed her to freely arrest rivals and anyone she suspected as threats to her power. In addition, the press were barred from sedition and speaking in an ill manner of the government during the emergency, and many reported that the measures proposed in the emergency could not be halted. Forced sterilization was a cause central to Indira Gandhi to control the Indian population and solve hunger issues in the country. The government incentivized sterilization with cash and cooking oil so that wives could force their husbands to sterilize, and more than 7.8 million men were sterilized from April 1976 to January 1977. Sanjay Gandhi, Indira's oldest son, was a large proponent of forced sterilization and was instrumental in its implementation. There were many parties and groups that attempted to resist the emergency. Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, better known as the RSS, is a right-wing and Hindu nationalist paramilitary group that still exists today, which attempted to resist the emergency. Their flag is pictured on the left. However, the police seized them in numbers and banned and arrested many members. They surrendered their activities in 1977. The CPI, or Communist Party of India, whose logo is depicted on the right, also tried to resist the emergency. The Naxalites, who were highly associated with the CPI, were arrested in the hundreds, and the leader of the CPI went to the assembly holding up his bloodied shirt in a passionate speech on why the emergency should end. The emergency was a terrible look for Gandhi, and she temporarily lost power. In 1977, Morarji Desai of the Janata Party became the new Prime Minister, and Raj Narain defeated Gandhi this time to her seat. After Gandhi reclaimed her seat in 1981 and became Prime Minister again, she launched Operation Blue Star in 1984. This operation was carried out to kill suspected Sikh terrorists hiding in the Golden Temple in Amritsar. The operations decimated the temple after an intense fight with the militants inside the temple. Many Sikhs were upset that the temple was decimated and the militants were fought back with such manpower. Some decided to take action. Later that year, 2 of Gandhi's bodyguards assassinated her in the garden as they were Sikh and felt it was retaliation for Operation Blue Star. Gandhi's attempts to retain power and mold India into her views went in vain due to her assassination and left India in chaos and her death.